All right, hello, welcome. This is Back of the Net, CISC's soccer podcast. Today we have a theme. We've got a great party here. We got three of my favorite people. We're going to be talking about futsal. We've got Pat White, who is our futsal director. We've got Mary Ray, who is recently, and if I mess up the title, please correct me, one of the assistant directors for the futsal program. And then we've got Emily McMillan. And all three of these coaches work at the club. And then on top of that, they also work at the futsal program. So if we can go ahead and introduce ourselves. Pat, let's start with you. Who are you and what do you do for the club?
Well, thanks for having us, Barry. Pat White, Director of Futsal and Camps. About 3 years ago, Thomas came to me and said, hey, we need to create a futsal program. The club is a big believer that our youngest players should grow up playing the game, learning the game. It helps. It's one of the biggest developmental tools to grow in a player. So picked up futsal 1995. A coach that I had, Coach Tozer, asked me to go down to Guatemala for the CONCACAF championships. Didn't know the rules, stepped on the field, learned the rules. And then about 10 years later, he ended up taking me to the Futsal World Cup as well. So been around the game for about 20 years, still learning and enjoying the game.
Nice. Emily, why don't you introduce yourself and then we'll hit Mary Ray next.
I am Emily McMillan. I coach two of our pre-senior girls teams for the club, and I have been working with the futsal program since it started and actually have taken some of our pre-senior girls teams to futsal nationals. That's it.
That's awesome. Mary.
I'm Mary. I coach two pre-senior girls teams in the South. And I am assistant to Pat with the futsal and the camps. And I actually just came in full time. So I've been coaching with the club for about a year, but now we'll be doing more and more with futsal, which is my favorite.
Yeah, that's great. We'll officially welcome. I obviously saw the news and I don't know if it's been released yet, but I've seen the press write up. So very excited to have you. For anybody that's listening or watching, I guess, now that we're doing video, Pat's been on the podcast before. So we've got like a nice 30 minutes or so, maybe 45 minutes talking about Pat's background. And there's lots of information there. He's got an incredible pedigree. And then Emily and I have actually spoke on the podcast as well. So this is everybody but Mary, repeat guest. And I'm excited to have it. This is something fun that we do where we can talk about different things that are important to the club as well as talk about you guys as the staff, right? I think one of the big things here is you guys are awesome. And our parents get interfaced, and our players get to see that. But it's nice when we can sort of highlight the things that you guys care about and the things that you're doing. So for anybody that's listening that might not know what futsal is, Mary, let's start with you. Can you give us sort of a brief what is futsal and how is it similar to soccer and how is it different?
Sure. So there's two versions of futsal. The original version is Fútbol de Salón, and it started in South America, and it's got those rules are actually a bit closer to soccer. But then when FIFA wanted to get a part of the game, they had to kind of create another version, and that's Fútbol Sala, which is what most people are familiar with and they think of as futsal. And then so with that, we'll talk about the FIFA version since the Salon version is pretty, I guess, less known. So the Sala version, the ball is smaller than a soccer ball. It's a lower bounce. We play on the court is about the size of a basketball court, a bit longer, and it's supposed to be a bit wider, but typically we play on the size of a basketball court. It's 5 aside, 4 and a keeper. One of the best rules, I think, is a 4-second restart. So it forces you to play very quickly and to know your options early. Goalkeepers, another really fun rule for goalkeepers is they only have 4 seconds, but they also can only possess the ball one time or have the ball one time in their team's possession on their defensive half. So that forces us to use a tactic we call fifth attacker. So a lot of times the goalkeepers will play the ball, and since they can't get it back on their defensive half, they go into the attacking half. So they become another player and just adds a layer of excitement to the game. Did I miss anything, Pat or Emily?
Yeah, pretty much covered it all. I think it's an exciting version of soccer with a couple differences that help make it an exciting different sport.
So 5-a-side, heavier, smaller soccer ball, or in this case, a futsal ball. Typically indoors on basketball arenas, but it can be outdoors. It can be on a hard court, right?
Absolutely. It's just got to be on a court.
Yeah. And then it's 4 players plus a goalkeeper. And as you've already mentioned, it's going to look and feel a little bit different. And you sort of highlighted a chance where the goalkeeper's actually higher up the pitch than everybody else, or at least at the moment. So that's pretty neat. Emily, let's jump to you real quick. So you tell us what you've done so far. I know you've coached a couple teams, and I know that you took 2 teams to nationals. And Emily, or Mary, we can hit back on yours as well. But let's start with Emily. So what have you done for futsal in the club, and when did you get started, Emily?
So about 4 years ago, we had a team that a parent reached out and said, hey, we want to do futsal at the league down in Charlotte. And I said, sure, let's give it a go and see what it's about. And we went down and joined the league at F5 and had a blast. And ended up going to regionals the first year, enjoyed it. And that kind of grew where I was taking the pre-CNL girls teams and doing futsal with them. We were doing the league, we were doing pickup on Sunday nights, and we had a team 3 years ago that was lucky enough to go to nationals and win the whole thing, which was insane because we were just a bunch of outdoor kids trying to play futsal and learning as we went. And then we did it again the following year, didn't quite make it to the finals, lost in the semis. But then when Pat was brought on board in futsal, it was all about me joining, and I was lucky enough that I was able to help him launch the program last year with the training and work with a lot of different kids, not just within my own teams, but the whole club.
That's awesome. And you guys won a national title, right?
We did.
Yeah.
Our 9 girls won nationals at U11.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, we've talked about that, I believe, in our previous podcast, but if not, it's a great achievement. All right. So Pat, you've been doing indoor and futsal, but you were actually on our U.S. national futsal team. And can you talk a little bit about the tournaments that you played in? You know, obviously everyone here listening probably knows a little bit about the World Cup. So if you can maybe sort of explain what that competition looks like, and then I'll let you even go into kind of what we offer currently here at the club in terms of our futsal program.
Yeah, 1996, I was playing indoor in Milwaukee, professionally indoor, and Coach Tozer, he's kind of the lead, most decorated indoor coach, futsal coach in the country. He was asked by his former college coach to take the team to Guatemala. It was I think it was the second time that the U.S. national team went to the CONCACAF championships. Obviously, the CONCACAF championships are you take first or second, you get into the World Cup. And so they didn't think we were going to actually do well. He took a bunch of indoor guys down there. We showed up. It was actually, we talk about the courts and things like that. It was in Guatemala outside on turf. And got this new ball. First time I touched it was in Guatemala. The court, everything else. We learned the rules. We ended up going on and beating Guatemala. I think it was Guatemala in the finals that year to get our place in the World Cup. Unfortunately, I didn't make that team for the World Cup that year. Young, pretty new to the indoor game as well. So I didn't make that cut. And then off and on, I played with the national team for the next 10 years. And then 10 years later, we were in Costa Rica for CONCACAF championships. He invited me that time. Actually, that year, I think I played in every game that year. I think it was 17 futsal games, where Brazil played, I think, 200 games that year. So it just kind of shows where the rest of the world is way ahead of us on that. And this is, again, 15 years ago. That was the difference. And if you look at it now, even the U.S. team isn't getting together more than 2 or 3 times a year. So they're probably playing somewhere close to that 30 games. Again, we played 17. Ended up beating Costa Rica in Costa Rica in the CONCACAF championships. And then later that year, he did take me to Chinese Taipei for the World Cup. We did match up against Brazil in the quarterfinals. I think we were down 5-1. We ended up losing the game 7-5. So came back. Typically, when we played Brazil, it was a 9-1 score. It was a 9-0 score. So to be in that game at the end, like Mary talked about, we brought our goalkeeper out, scored some goals at the end. And then there was a guy, Falcao, that took over and scored 2 great goals at the end to beat us. But that was kind of my experience with futsal with the national team.
Yeah. And what are we offering now? I believe that there's been sort of a structured plan where we're starting to add more. So why don't you tell us what we have currently set up for the club and what's new and in terms of the programming for the futsal?
Yeah, we're in a place like if you take Lake Norman Discoveries and the Rapids 20 years ago, we're just starting our futsal program. So we have three coaches, 3 directors that are starting that. Our goal is to try to figure out how to create something for our CIC membership. Obviously, we're a huge club. How do we create programs around their outdoor season? It's tough to get a player and then all of a sudden, hey, I got to go to this game and I have to, I have this practice, so I have to miss futsal. So what that does is gives us Fridays or Sunday nights really to create some programs, and then that December, January window. So what we did this year is, and it's going to be pushed out later this week, maybe even actually today, is we'll have team programs. What that is 2011 to 2016, or the 15-16 age group. So 2011 to 2015-16 age group, girls and boys teams. This will be a pool of 16 to 20 players that they'll train together for 8 to 10 months. Every month, about 1 to 2 trainings. And then in December, January, when they have a little bit more free time, we'll probably go 3 to 4 times a week with trainings. With these groups, we'll figure out the levels that they're at, do some tournaments, maybe some regionals and national competition. So they'll train and play as a group. This will be evaluation or tryout for these. Those tryouts are October 16th, and those times will come up shortly. Also, then there's our training program. We did this last year. We did it as a 12-week program straight, and it was hard for a lot of kids to sign up. So what we did this year is the commitment level of 12 weeks is very difficult. So this week we did smaller groups. So we're doing 5-week training sessions, and those will start at the end of October. What that will be is a little bit of futsal, working on technique, tactical things, and then playing the last half hour. And we'll try to bring those closer to the regions.
All right. So we've got 2 things going, if I got this right, and tell me where I missed it. But we have a training program, which is you're going to be playing futsal and you're going to be training futsal and practicing futsal. And then at the end of the session, you're going to be scrimmaging or playing futsal. So that's one. And we've offered that before. And what we're doing now, which is new, is we're actually going to be having futsal teams that'll be having training. And that's that Friday or Sunday that you guys are working on. Probably have it scheduled already. And then also the sort of the December, January window where you're going to be entering tournaments, as well as possibly some regional type events. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. So kind of like you try out or you get evaluated for your outdoor team. We're going to have those for futsal this year. So October 16th, it's a Sunday night. Players will come out. We'll do an evaluation. If they make it, they'll be part of a 8 to 12 month training program. Well, they'll be with their teams. They'll have a paid coach with that. And obviously those training programs will intensify, or there'll be more of those in December and January when they have more time around their outdoor schedule. They get a little break in there. So we'll ramp up those practice times a little bit, add some more to that. And then depending on how those teams will be doing in those trainings, our directors, our coach and staff will start to find some tournaments that make sense for those groups. Obviously, really being the first year with that, we don't want to just take them and fly them all over the place and enter them into things that don't make sense for the group. If teams are ready for regionals, we'll enter them into regionals. Obviously, they do well and ready for nationals, then we have the national programs that we can get them into, like we obviously did with Emily's groups, and then Mary has done with her teams in the past.
And what you said it, but remind us what age group for the trainings and what age group for the teams?
Yeah, that'll be the 2015-16 age group up to the 2011 age group. So girls and boys.
For both training and teams, correct?
So that'll be for the teams. And then the training groups will be anywhere from 2016 to 2004.
Okay. So the team.
Yeah.
So the team. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, they won't be playing games. Those will be just 5-week sessions. They'll come in and train. get a taste of futsal. We have a lot of kids that around their outdoor just want to get in there and play a little bit, so, or learn the game.
Mary, I know from a college perspective, when you can't get outside, you're playing inside, and a lot of times we're using futsal balls. So why would somebody want to play futsal? What does futsal either add to your game, or what does it reinforce for the outdoor game? I'm sure there's differences. So kind of take that wherever you want.
Yeah, there's some differences. I think for me, futsal takes the soccer game and intensifies it, right? So everything's tighter space. Your touches have to be clean. Even your tackles have to be clean, because in futsal, after on the 6th foul and every foul after that, it's a PK. So you have to be exceedingly clean. Your tactics have to be sharp. The execution of your one touch, your two touch passes, your 1v1 ability, your ability to solve problems on the fly, that is just intensified in futsal. Because I mean, when you play futsal and then you go out on the outdoor field, you feel like you have days of time and space. You're like, where's the other player? And then two, the ball is so much, like, you have so much power because you're used to hitting a heavier, denser ball. So you're striking, you're passing, everything has so much more power in the game. The futsal game makes the soccer game feel slower, right? Because you have to play at a crazy fast pace. So some of the futsal players that I've trained in the past, when I watch them play outdoors, it's just like, man, they're light years ahead of everybody else, because they have such tight control in the close space of the futsal court, that when they go outside, it just looks so easy for them.
Yeah. Do you think that's a function? I'm just sort of thinking out loud here. So obviously you're getting players that love the game and playing more. So that's got to help, right? And then you're also playing on a court where the ball's going to be moving faster. And then you're also on a tighter space, right? I mean, I'm assuming there's probably a ratio of pressure versus space, but you're going to have pressure on you a lot quicker because it's smaller. And then on top of that, it's not 11v11. I know not all of our players 11v11, but there's 5 players.
Yeah.
So
You get
do you
more
think it's
touches
all
on the
those
ball.
things?
Yeah, absolutely, a combination. Plus like I talked about, the restart rule and the foul. Some of the rules in the game itself are really good teachers, right? You can't reuse the goalkeeper in football sala. You reuse the goalkeeper. So it forces you to solve problems in a different way. It's not as easy to go backwards. You have to go forwards. Players on the court have to problem solve, right? So I think it's a combination of all those factors.
Emily, I think you've got probably an interesting perspective. So you sort of were brought you had a team that was interested in doing it and they hadn't done it before. So what have you seen as the benefits? Like, why are players continuing to sign up to do futsal? I mean, what have you noticed with the kids that have played for you here in the club?
Well, first of all, it's fun. I've seen the kids love it. It's so fast. They get to make their own decisions. They get to try things. And so I think the fun factor is massive. They just enjoy it, because who doesn't want to play, and who doesn't want to play in a quick, fast game where you score a lot of goals, right? Goals are easy. A lot of goals are scored in futsal, and kids love to score goals. And then I think, like Mary said, the benefits of watching them go outdoors, where their footwork, their speed of play, their speed of decision, of thinking comes in, and they see how much it helps them. That not only is it fun, but it makes them better in the outdoor game, that draws kids to it and makes them want to continue to go and be a part of it.
Pat, if you're looking at this from a parent perspective, what is the parent looking for that they're going to get out of the futsal program? Like, what is this going to add to either, their life for kid, or just from a soccer standpoint, however you want to break that down?
Yeah, I think being a camp director, doing clinics, doing trainings, parents will always come to me and say, hey, my kid needs to get better at their touch. They need to have more confidence on the ball. They don't ask for it. They don't demand it. They're not getting enough from their teammates. Is it that the teammates don't want to pass it to them? How can I get them to play at a higher level? How can I get them to keep the ball a little bit better? And I think that's the great game about the great game of futsal, is you're playing in a tight area. Every mistake you make creates a goal scoring chance the other way. So one, you talk about fun and exciting. It's a fun and exciting game, one, for the parents to be there, right? You talk about outdoor, your player might touch it one every 10 times. Here they're touching it every 2, 3, 4 seconds. They have to show for it. So now they're moving quickly to get the ball. If they don't demand the ball, if they're not in a position to get the ball, it's going to cause problems for their teammates. So it's going to be a turnover that's going to go to goal. If my teammates aren't showing, so if I'm one of the better players, now it forces me to be in that one-on-one situation where I have to have the confidence to take them on. With this ball that Mary talked about that doesn't bounce, it's a little bit easier to control when it comes to you. The sole of the foot's very important. So once you receive it, it's usually underneath your body. And so now by having that first touch, you have more time now to think about making those decisions. And so you can move this ball a little bit more with the less air. So you find that you become creative. You get your touches on the ball that you're looking for, and it forces you, because of this tight space, to now make those moves or make those right decisions. And then when you do that, you're in a closer area to score goals. So now if you're a defender, you have to learn to score goals. You have to shoot. If you're a goalkeeper, end of the game, you're down 2-1, you're in a position to score goals. So it brings that exciting aspect, but it touches on every part of the game. The next thing is the defensive side, right? How do we defend together? Do we go high pressure? Do we go low pressure? So now it's teaching us things that we have to do in the game that bring our team together. So the organization, the communication, all these things are great teaching points that you're now learning at 7, 8 years old, rather than maybe outdoor where you're working on them at 14, 15, 16.
Yeah, I think you hit everything on the head there. I'm not even a futsal guy, and I'm getting super excited about it. Players want to get better, and when they're playing 11v11, obviously in training, we're not just doing 11v11, but the system is set up in such a way that they're going to get lots of touches, and they're going to have more pressure on them, and they're going to get to make their own decisions. All the things that we as soccer coaches know that they need. And a lot of times, you guys probably can back me up here, but if a player wants to get better, they got to go play soccer. There's other things that you can do, but the best way to get better is to go play. And futsal is just an incredible option.
Yeah, another thing to add to that, in the outdoor game, if one person isn't doing their job, you have 10 other players that can back them up. Here, if you're not doing your job, or if you're not working hard, if you're not covering, if you're not tucking in, if you're making mistakes, the team gets affected by it. So it puts you in a position to learn quickly. If you fail with that, obviously we can learn from failing. So it puts you in situations that you're going to fail, and then hope you don't make that mistake 2 or 3 times, right? You're going to learn from that. So it's a great training tool for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it when, it's what we're doing as coaches, right? We want to put them in an environment that's going to bring out what we're trying to bring out. And futsal's a fun, exciting environment that's going to make them better. And they're going to look a little different too. I've had a kid from Macedonia that's played for me. I've had a kid from Brazil that's played for me. And when they played futsal or indoor, it was just a different experience. Shout out to my former captains, Lucas and Mario. We're running out of time here, so Mary, I'm gonna go with you, and then we'll hit Emily, and then we'll let Pat wrap us up. We've got about 6 minutes left. I know Mary's got something to go, and also the video is gonna cut out. So, Mary, what things do you want to hit? It could be about anything. It could be about futsal. What do you want us to know?
So one thing we didn't really talk about is, and it's not necessarily a rule, and you can play it with set positions, but in futsal, there really aren't set positions, right? And that's one of the things, as when we look at our soccer players, we want, if our center back takes it forward, we want that holding center mid to cover for them, right? So to have that flexibility, and you see it with soccer players, but it's not everyone. So futsal really helps kids to learn how to read the game and make their own decisions, like Emily had talked about earlier and Paz talked about. So instead of playing like with one center back and 2 wing players and a forward, you rotate through positions. And it's like Pat said a couple of times, every player is always in a position where they can be an offensive threat. And that's one of the most beautiful things about the game. And it just makes it so much more fun, I think.
This is turning into a sales pitch to all of our coaches. Go put your kids in the futsal program. They're doing all the things that you need them to do. Emily, your turn. What do you got for us? What's important to you? Whether it's something about futsal or something else.
I've loved watching the kids that I've worked with through futsal progress and develop. And we've had kids, that have gone from maybe the middle of the pack to the top of the pack on their team. And I've seen kids move up teams within from doing futsal the last few years. And that's been really, really fun to see. Our O9s that won nationals, just that same group of girls, all 10 of them that went to ECNL national playoffs and made the broke out of bracket. And I think that futsal is a large part of that. I think their history of futsal, their background in futsal is part of what gave them that edge. And hopefully we continue to do that for all our kids.
Yeah, I love it. Pat, I know we hit the programs. I'm going to hit it one more time so you can add details that are important that I miss, and then you're going to take us home. So we have two training programs that are going to get started. Two programs. One's a training program, so you can play futsal, and that's 2016 all the way up to 2004s. And you can tell us the start date in a second. And then we have actual teams, which is new. And those are also going to start at the same time, but those are for 2016 to 2011. So that's a smaller bracket. And we're going to have professional coaches that are going to be coaching these groups and running these trainings. And then we have a staff of sort of 3 full-time people that are looking at this pretty consistently. So we'd love to have your kids in the program if this sounds like something that your kid would be interested in. And, playing indoor soccer, playing futsal is a ton of fun. So if they haven't tried it, I definitely recommend it. Pat, all you.
Yeah, so this week we'll be pushing out our Charlotte Independence futsal teams. This will be an 8 to 10 month training program. Okay, typically Sundays. Will be some weeknights in January, February. Once we put the kids into these, or they're evaluated into these, the evaluation is October 16th at night between that 5 to 8 o'clock time slot. Once they're in their teams or their training pools, they'll train for those 8 to 10 weeks. The goal is to build these teams up that they're capable of competing in regionals. Obviously, if they win regionals, they go on to nationals. So it's getting our younger players the training tools and then kind of see where they go with it. If they're ready for it, then we'll put them in. Otherwise, there'll be some other tournaments that will sign them up so they can compete. We don't want to just train. So it's competition. So that's, again, the Charlotte Independence futsal teams. That's 2011 to 2015, 16 age groups. Okay. And then there's the developmental trainings. These are going to be 5-week programs. If you're not on these teams, it's anyone from 2016 to 2004. It'll be Sunday nights. We'll have the older girls and boys together on Sunday nights for an hour. They'll come in and train and then play at the end of it. Okay. Last year we did a 12-week program. Very difficult for all the players to sign up for 12 weeks. So what we did this year is we just made them smaller and we're going to add more. So right now that's going to start at the end of October. It's kind of a fall winter session 1. Session 2 will start in January and go through February, and then potentially a session 3 based on how that goes. If we get a lot of sign up, right now it's open to 16 to 20 players for those levels. If we get a lot of sign up, we'll add more times. So that's the 2 things to look for this week that we'll be pushing out. And then in the next 2-3 weeks, we're going to talk about more of our leagues. We have our recreational leagues. We want to offer more things for our recreational program. And then we have our competitive leagues. Last year, our competitive leagues were individual sign up. This year, we're going to let teams sign up as teams. So our hope is to have our Matthews 2006 Blue playing against our Lake Norman Blue team. Have a kind of a bracket of that. Also, kids from outside the club can form teams and join as well. All of our programs, actually, if you're a kid from outside the club, you can join and be a part of it as well. And then our last thing that we're going to do with futsal is we'll have our holiday tournament. So in that, Christmas to New Year's holiday time, we will have, sorry about that, is a tournament, a futsal tournament that I think we had 30 teams last year and try to double it this year. So creating something for everybody.
We've got lots of options, guys. Training, teams, holiday events, all this information you can find through Playmetrics. So if you're a member of the club, you have Playmetrics account, go to club programs, it'll be listed in there. And then Pat, do we have a live website? Are we up and running yet with the futsal page?
Yeah, so that'll be all up to date today. So it'll go live today. So you're getting this probably